Welcome to Bemadzajig Ginonindwa. This podcast is produced by the Communications Department at the Anishinaabe Nation. We will be focusing on the issues and initiatives in Anishinaabe Nation territory. I'm your host, Lisa Abel. The Anishinaabe Nation Grand Council Assembly took place in Sudbury in early June. This assembly is an important expression of our traditional Anishinaabe governance practices. The meeting was significant this year, as it was time to elect a Grand Council Chief and Deputy Grand Council Chief for 3-year terms. Anishinaabemowin protocol and ceremony were woven in throughout the 2-day proceedings, which were led by our head Getsit, our Kwewuk Council, Knowledge Keepers, and youth. In this episode, we'll update you on the outcomes of the election and take a closer look at the Anishinaabe Nation's stand-up election process. The Anishinaabe Nation hosts 2 assemblies per year, one in June and one in November, alternating locations based on our 4 regions. The purpose of the assemblies is to bring together Anishinaabe Nation leadership, staff, and other stakeholders to discuss the status of existing mandates and next steps, and to provide direction on new mandates. As I made my way through the busy conference rooms and witnessed the proceedings, I realized the assembly is more than just a business meeting. It's a time to visit and reconnect, to be immersed in our language, songs, and protocols, and feel the pride of being Anishinaabe. There was a sunrise ceremony each morning, led by head Getsit, Mishomis Richard Asinawe. Thunder Earth Drum from Manitoulin Island also played an important part in the assembly by accompanying each aspect of protocol with a specific song, starting with Grand Entry, where the Anishinaabe Nation Eagle staffs, the flag of the nation, and flags of each of the 39 member First Nations were brought into the assembly. This year also marked the first time that the Anishinaabe Nation Progress Pride flag was carried in during Grand Entry by Heidi Weetung and Nuaka Gishi Miigwan, members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ Advisory Council. Mishomis Richard shared an opening Thanksgiving, followed by a recital of the Nagodwe Wangizid Anishinaabe by Nokomis Donna Dabaski, Getsajig, and member of the Kwewuk Advisory Council.
Debenchget ki sar Anishinaabe na king gibet gon gardenim ne dawatsuin shkoden beke nodin gibet gastonan winagdoin mingman pishkak mikang. Debenchget ki minan get toinda Anishinaabe wanagdojin na den nishosik numadoinen. Zagidwin devwewin daden moin bokawin Paden diswin kwe kotsuin minoshak dewin. Debenchget ki min gonadel bunewin nagdoin ding. Kapnadin danagabi shoebak, minoge nangomego shoebak, minoge yabewan shoebak. Now, miigwech.
The Godwe Wangizid Anishinaabe is the preamble to the Anishinaabe Chinoknagewin, our Anishinaabe Nation Constitution. Throughout the assembly, there were many references to the spirit and intent of our Constitution, which translates as one Anishinaabe family. Aside from the Grand Council leadership elections, the agenda for the Assembly also included the Union of Ontario Indians corporate business, regional caucus meetings, and the election of regional chiefs, appointments to the Leadership Council, the Treasury, and the Anishinaabe Nation 7th Generation Charity Boards, and voting on resolutions. As part of the business items, an amendment was made to the UOI corporate bylaws. In the previous term, there were 4 regional deputy Grand Council chiefs. However, the governance structure was changed, and moving forward, there will be 1 deputy Grand Council chief. Another important agenda item was the adoption of a new Anishinaabe Nation Union of Ontario Indians Governance Manual, also called the Political Office Policies and Procedures Manual. Once the corporate business was taken care of, the energy was high as the Grand Council Assembly began the election process for our Anishinaabeg Nation Grand Council Chief and Deputy Grand Council Chief. The Anishinaabeg Nation conducts a traditional stand-up election. In this process, there is no secret ballot. The chiefs are called upon to stand up publicly to support the candidate of their choosing. Electoral officers Gary Dokis and Gordon Chop Wendebase Jr. facilitated the election. It was Gary's 6th time being involved in a Grand Council Chief election. And as you may know, Chop is the son of Gordon Shike Wendebase Ba, our longtime Anishinaabeg Nation head Getsit, who worked for decades to revitalize our traditional election process. On the first day, all chiefs and proxies were asked to join a chief's circle, and they passed the talking stick around as they introduced themselves. Gary took some time to explain how the stand-up election works. Here's part of the story he shared.
Before we start, I was asked to say a few things, but something's different this election. I think this process that we've developed and we're calling our own and going back to the old ways, obviously the person behind that starting was Gordon Wendebase, and he's not with us today, as everybody knows. He passed a couple of years ago. But I really just have to talk a little bit about Gordon and the process that was here, because he was involved at both levels. The first Grand Council I attended, it was in 2006 in Sandpoint. I remember a discussion happened on the floor about having to go back to our ways, because it had always been a secret ballot up until 2006. So discussion went on, and I just, with interest, watching what's happening here. And I guess at one point the co-chairs said, well, our rules of procedure can't say we do that. And everybody knows Gordon. He took the rules of procedures and ripped them up and threw them on the ground and said, now what do you have? So there was, it was interesting to see that discussion. So that's how it happened at the Anishinaabeg level in 2006 at Sandpoint. So there was a resolution that was passed on the floor at that time to have a stand-up election. So we did our first stand-up election, and that's all it was. It was stand-up election. There was no ceremony attached with it, nothing like that. And I guess because it was just a resolution for that one meeting, it only covered the one. So in 2009, when I got involved, we did a survey with the chiefs, and some said, no, you don't want to do that. It's not the right way to stand up. But Gord always said, if you're going to be a leader, you have to stand up and show what you believe in. So after a couple, it became our standard way of doing it. And we have been doing it now since 2006, and has become our standardized process since then. And he was important. I've got my sheets over here. The process, he wanted it documented, so we keep doing it after he's gone. Another important part of the process is, you'll see today the youth are going to record the nominations, and then they also do the counting tomorrow. So he understood it was important for the youth to be involved, because he wanted to become forward. And like Chop and I were talking yesterday, is going to be a day that I won't be here and Chop won't be here, and we want somebody else to keep this going. So definitely he was a driver. The process really has been driven by Gordon. So I think it's fair to say that he's not with us this time. He's here with us in spirit, and we're following through in the right way. We are teaching our youth how to do it. And I think I said enough. So I'm going to get back to the rest of our agenda for this afternoon. Miigwech.
After Gary read the rules, Mishomis Richard did a pipe ceremony. Then they began the nomination circle. First for Deputy Grand Council Chief, then for Grand Council Chief. If the nominee accepts the tobacco presented to them, it means they have formally accepted the nomination. And once the nominees were seconded, the nominators and seconders were given 5 minutes to speak about their candidate. Aamjiwnaang First Nation Chief Chris Plain was nominated for the position of Deputy Grand Council Chief by Chief Joe Muskokamon of Chippewas of the Thames First Nation. This was seconded by Chief Kimberly Brissett of Kettle and Stony Point First Nation. Mel Hardy of Bean Jitawabik Saging Anishinaabeg was nominated for Deputy Grand Council Chief by Chief Louis Kwiswa Natam Sagamig. Chief David Mushquash of Pays Plat seconded. The youth were tasked with confirming the nominees, and a resolution was passed accepting them. Then the Chief Circle moved on to the nominations for Grand Council Chief. Reg Niganabe was nominated for Grand Council Chief by Chief Brent Niganabe of Mississauga First Nation, and seconded by Chief Ted Williams of Rama First Nation. Linda DeBossige of Chiging First Nation was nominated for Grand Council Chief by Chief Scott McLeod of Nipissing First Nation. Chief Patsy Corbiere of Ondek Omniconning seconded. After the nomination circles, Gary asked 3 times if there were any further nominations, and for a resolution to accept the nomination results. And that was the end of the first day. There was a sweat lodge and feast that evening for the nominees and anyone else that was interested. Before day 2 of the election process began, Gary and Chop briefly shared some stories and teachings. Chop Wendebes spoke about the protocols and procedures for the election, why they're in place, and about the importance of incorporating the clans into the election process.
There's a lot of things that are shared here when we're doing protocols, when we're doing our ceremonies. I sat down with our head Gitsit here a few times, and we were talking about a lot of the procedures that we have and why they're in place. Our clan systems are very, very important, especially when it comes to these kinds of ceremonies, these kinds of elections, because we're not Jaganashuk. So today, I'm gonna put a chair on these doorways here, and I wanna make sure that we have our turtle clans and our fish clans sitting at these doorways. Our turtle clans are our mediators when we're having a difficult time. Just like on this staff right here, specifically. If you have a really good look at these feathers, there's one feather that is flipped, and it's flipped for a reason. And I spoke about it last night in the lodge. Opposition is good because we need it, no matter what kind it is, but it has to be done in a proper way. Kagego Jaganash, we're not Jaganash. We don't scream and yell at each other. We do this in a positive way still, because it can be done. Our mediators in those turtle clans will help us understand the clarity that needs to happen at that time. And our fish clan, alongside with them.
Chop also explained why the candidates would be standing in the front of the room during the election, but facing away from the group.
As soon as we begin, the individuals that are going to be standing right here, they're going to be looking right at this young man sitting in front of me. One of them, and then the other one's going to be on the other end. Just like a traditional dancer will never step backwards while they're dancing, while they're telling their story. Ogama, the same way. You don't look back, you stay forward, look forward. When we're talking about the stories and we're passing those on, we make sure we explain them though. We make sure we explain the process. And that process is, it's not only the fact that there's gonna be a lineup behind you to support you, but we wanna continuously move forward. We don't wanna look back because we're not there anymore.
Thunder Earth Drum played a song to invite the chiefs into the circle, and Mishomis Richard also shared a teaching. Then each candidate had 10 minutes to speak to the assembly.
Which Thunder Earth.
They started with the candidates for Deputy Grand Council Chief. Chief Chris Plain began by acknowledging the drum, the staff, the sacred items, and the bundles, and by thanking his nominators. Picking up on what Chief McLeod had said the day before, he noted that Aamjiwnaang had had their first female chief in 2016 and currently had several female council members and youth council members. He said that his great-uncle, Fred Plain, had been the first president of the Union of Ontario Indians.
And I don't want to lose the vision that he had set aside, for this organization. And we heard about that yesterday from Chief Patsy. We're getting away from, the political arm, the political strength of our collective nation, and getting into program and service delivery. Program and service delivery is good, because we can do that to our own and for our own. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to stay strong in our political beliefs.
Chief Plain highlighted his track record in Aamjiwnaang.
Chief Muskookman talked about how I was able to turn around my community. Well, we have a lot of great people in Aamjiwnaang and not a lot of great resources. But the truth of the matter is, I came in at a time when it was, very, very, very traumatic in our community, and we were going through a forensic audit. I'd lost all the senior administration. So what I wanted to do is I hired all Aamjiwnaang band members with degrees to come in and fill all those senior positions, and we worked together. And we built our staff from 38 to 150, and we built our members' equity from 38 million to 121 million now in a short 15, 20-year time. So, we are progressive. We have an opportunity. We have experience in joint ventures. We have experience in specific claims. We're under current state of emergency for an industry leak, which has afforded us an opportunity to meet with several government officials, provincial, federal, and we had that industry shut down, because, human life has mattered to us. And, we talked about the fact that we're right holders, we're not stakeholders. And, we made national news and we were able to get that done. And, I come from the Southwest region, but I'm really come from the Anishinaabeg Nation. I don't believe in regions. I don't believe in biases. I don't believe in, I believe in friendships and relationships, but I believe in the position that you're there to respect and protect and work for all the First Nations equally. And so, you don't have to worry about the fact that I'm going to be biased. We come from a progressive region, and if we can share our resources with those in the north, I think that'll make it a little bit stronger for all of our nations.
Candidate Melvin Hardy then addressed the room.
I'm honored to be before you as a dedicated advocate for the Anishinaabe well-being and prosperity. I'm committed to continuing and championing our rights, our values, and our aspirations. So what I want to, in my role, I want to say I believe in power of the unity and collaboration. Together we can build a more resilient Anishinaabe nation that thrives on inclusivity and respect for our traditions. Our communities are the center of our work and our strength. I will focus on fostering economic development initiatives that enhance job opportunities in your communities, support First Nations entrepreneurship, and ensure sustainable growth for our communities to build a prosperous future for all. Our lands are sacred. It is our responsibility to protect and preserve them for future generations. I am dedicated to advocating environmental sustainability, practices that honor our connections to the earth and promote healthy and thriving ecosystems with respecting to treaties and territories. The well-being of our people is paramount. I will continue to advocate for healthcare services. Your voice, your concerns, and your goals matter. I will consistently listen, ensure advocacy efforts are reflective of your voices. All these things we talk about what's needed and what we can do, how it can be done, where it can be done, who we can contact to get it done. All this won't matter if we don't properly heal ourselves. It starts with us.
Following these speeches, the two candidates for Deputy Grand Council Chief stood at the front of the room, but facing away from the group. As the drum played, the chiefs and proxies lined up behind the candidate of their choice. Members of the Youth Council did the count and reported back to Gary.
Okay, miigwech Thunder Earth for that. I just heard back from the youth and they're done their count. And you have selected a Deputy Grand Council Chief, Chris Plain.
The stand-up election results were 21-16. Melvin Hardy thanked his supporters. Thunder Earth played a unity song, and all the chiefs stood behind Chris Plain as a sign of unity and support. A resolution was passed accepting the results. The election for Grand Council Chief followed the same process. Incumbent Grand Council Chief Reg Niganabi was the first to speak. Reg Niganabi introduced himself and acknowledged the Eagle staffs, the drum, and the bundle. He thanked his nominators, his brother for sharing additional teachings as he carried the bundle during his term. He talked about the success in establishing relationships during his term, such as with the leadership of Treaty 3 and the Bay Mills Indian Band, and how they successfully spoke at the United Nations.
One of the teachings that I did hear, and one I keep hearing, is that the Anishinaabe will rise. The sleeping giant will rise. And you're not talking about Nanabuju out in the water, out in Thunder Bay out there, out on Fort William territory. But to rise, and when you say Anishinaabe, you're talking about all of us. And to me, you're talking about relationships. You need to establish those relationships with our other Anishinaabe. We've had the opportunity to do that. And sitting with Ogichida, Francis Kavanaugh, and smoking pipe. We could always do memorandums of understanding and agreements, and those are fine and all, but I always hear at these ceremonies, those pieces of paper don't mean anything. It's sitting and sharing and smoking those pipe that means something. Me and Ogichida understood what that was. Francis Kavanaugh was gracious enough to have his team come in from Treaty 3 and talk to us about their Aki and Naknageowin, how they govern their lands and how they govern as a whole unit over their one area, their one land. But that's not to stop there either, though, because we've also built the relationship on the other side of the medicine line or the fake line that's there to the US. In fact, we went to the United Nations with our friends from Bay Mills Indian Band, who are also Anishinaabe. I don't know if you've ever been to the UN, but it's damn near impossible to get in the door. And it's even harder to speak there. Anishinaabe Nation got to speak there. And we got to speak against Line 5. And when we spoke, our submission made it to the United Nations, that made it to the final report that Canada had to respond to. And that Bay Mills Indian Band was grateful to us for, because they're trying to shut that Line 5 down right at the Straits of Mackinac. And they're helping us in that regard.
Reg Niganabi also pointed to the new governance manual as a tool for accountability and mentioned other advocacy work taken on during his term.
And then there's the relationship within here, within our Anishinaabe Nation. Much work has been done. The governance manual that was passed yesterday has been a long time coming. So we did it, and we passed it yesterday. And now we have accountability. 10 minutes flies by pretty quick. I could go much longer. There's lots to cover, because we've been fighting all kinds of legislation, whether it be Métis, climate change, changing our nation building councils so that they are more congruent with everything that we have going on here, and engaging them, and being more inclusive.
The drum was keeping time, so Reg Niganabi ended on a positive note. Linda Dubosky began by acknowledging how her family taught her leadership skills from a young age, and that she had been mentored by many First Nations leaders. She talked about her track record of advocacy work over the years, including how she participated in the Anishinaabe Nation fight against HST, and how she had fought for better policing and enforcement of First Nation bylaws. She also highlighted what she had accomplished as Indigenous trustee and vice chair of the Rainbow District School Board. 11 First Nations communities had educational service agreements with this board.
I became a trustee with Rainbow District School Board Indigenous trustee. I then became vice chair. First Indigenous Quad to do that. Made huge changes within that board, creating a whole entire Indigenous education department, refocusing our efforts on our children's needs and supporting our First Nations feeder schools, are what they call them, the children coming into the public school system from elementary. In that process, we had education service agreements that have now been discontinued, but under our leadership, we're continuing them with Rainbow District School Board. In saying that, I also led the proper process and ceremony in Tikmekshing. There was a education service renewal signing, and they were just going to get the chiefs together and sign a paper. I said, no, it's more than that. This is our children's education. And they knew where I stood. They knew I would figure out a way, because when I became a trustee, I would refuse to bear allegiance to the Queen. And I found a way to bear allegiance to our Creator, our laws, and most importantly, our children.
She noted that she could be a fierce advocate, but always while working together.
Before I was elected into leadership, first as a councillor and then after that as a chief, I worked in the bush. I was told girls can't drive dump trucks. Well, I showed them how I could. Girls can't operate excavators. Oh, I'll show you that too. I worked alongside real tough, burly men, and they're actually scared of me when I got upset. I did a TVO special, and this lady said something against what we believe in, and the lady beside me had to grab my arm. This was on TVO, it's public. That's what I do. Kind to our people, kind to each other, but I will be fierce to the different levels of government, to industry, but only with your help. Gudwaiwan Gazet Anishinaabe, we are all one family, and together, and only together, can we make those impacts on the ground, at home where it matters, while also protecting our existing lands and getting our land back. And we do this together. We need to come together as a family, and we need this many people to turn up at every single meeting we have when we have a Chiefs Assembly, because the government continues to make decisions without us, and we're not making any noise about it. It's time for us to rise up, and I want to rise up with you, and I want you to rise up with me.
So we're going to get Thunder Earth again to play a song, and Chop's going to line the two candidates, and after that I'll ask you to go stand behind your preferred candidate. Oh, Miigwech again. Thunder Earth. So you have selected a Grand Council Chief, Linda Debosige.
The vote results were 28-9. This historic vote marked the first ever Anishinaabeg Grand Council Chief for the Anishinaabeg Nation. Reg Niganabe thanked his supporters, and all the chiefs lined up behind Linda Debosky. A motion was passed to accept the results. Mishomis Richard, Donna Debosky, and Chop Wainabase led additional protocols, including a pipe ceremony and the blanketing. Mishomis Richard explained that the blanketing ceremony for the deputy and Grand Council chiefs goes back to our old ways.
And the mothers, the grandmothers, elders, those are the ones that are in charge of blankets and the bonnets. The women got up with that blanket, dressed them up, the new leader, the former leader, blanket, and had an eagle staff and a pipe in his hand, the former leader. And they honored that old chief. They honored everything what that chief did for the people. Anything at all. They honored. He sang song to honor that Gima, that previous Gima. And that Gima started dancing around once by themselves. And over here, that's where they got ready to meet the new chief. The new chief stood over here and waited for that one, come around once. Then when they met face to face with that eagle staff, with their bundle, they stood there. And the former chief says, Naha, Amandat Kobajigan, a poagan, and make not thick the pipe and the eagle staff. Ahagin Tum, it's your turn, 4 times. Ahagin Tum, your turn now. And then what did they do after that? They stood together with this new chief that was put a blanket on, week 1, ready. And then what did they do? They sang another song, a new chief song. I asked the drummers to sing a new chief song later on. But it's to honor the old chief first, to honor that one. So that new chief song, when they sung it, both of these chiefs danced around the shkude, the fire, once. Then everybody else joined in to honor both of them and thank them.
After the traditional election process was complete, the meeting continued with regular business, including resolutions. And the following day, we celebrated Anishinaabe Gishgat. This is a national holiday for the Anishinaabeg. It commemorates the day the Anishinaabeg Nation ratified our Anishinaabe Chinoknagewin, the written constitution of the Anishinaabeg Nation, on June 6, 2012. Several Anishinaabeg Nation communities hosted in-person celebrations this year. And the teachings shared by Chop Wendebes, Isidore Toulouse, and Barbara Nolan in Sudbury on June 6th can be enjoyed on our YouTube page. It was an honor to witness the stand-up election, and I hope you learned something too about our traditional Anishinaabe governance practices. The Grand Council Assembly resolutions will be posted on the Anishinaabe Nation website on the Grand Council page. For more information about Anishinaabe Gishgat, visit the Anishinaabe Nation's Education Resources page. Chimigwech to Chop Wendebes, Gary Dokis, and Mishomis Richard for sharing your teachings. To the candidates and our new leaders, to our chiefs and proxies, to Anishinaabe Nation staff for your hard work organizing the assembly, and to Thunder Earth Drum from Manitoulin Island for the drum songs at the assembly that we included in this podcast. Our theme song is Brothers by Wolf Sega and Chippewa Travelers. Thank you for listening to this episode of Bimadzijig Ginonindua. Until next time, Bama P.